World War II, a time of modern combat and modern technologies. It truly was a unique time period to live in. The old style of military and warfare had to be forgotten. The Allied nations had to adapt to the new German technologies. One of these were improved aircraft, the most notable being the British Spitfire, which was a fighter plane. It had nearly saved the Great British Invasion. Next was the American line of Boeing aircraft, the B-20s. This line of aircraft were specifically designed for bombing, as suggested, while also being quite small, packing a large explosive in a small vessel. Air bombers had been a thing in World War I, but rarely saw use until the end of the war. America had not joined World War II until 1941, when the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor, a disaster nonetheless. Before they had joined the war, they had been selling supplies to the Allies. America was getting rich off of their backs, leaving for some interesting scientific advances. After the surrender of Germany in May of 1945, the Americans had one target: Japan. In August later that year, America dropped the atomic bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The B-25's older brother, the B-29, had dropped the bomb. The war had finally come to an end. What would happen next was a diplomatic war between two major superpowers. A very cold one. The Boeing Company's B-20 line of aircraft had served since 1940, just about a year before America had joined the war. 5 models later, and you have yourself the B-25 bomber. The B-25, full name the North American B-25 Mitchell, stood at a height of 15 feet tall and a wingspan of 76 feet. It was able to carry over 3,000 pounds of explosives internally and more in the exterior racks. It was powered by 2 1,700 horsepower engines and could travel up to 1,350 miles on a full tank of gasoline. To put that into perspective, that's about the distance of Washington to Newfoundland, Canada. Not very far, but most planes started away from the shore and on aircraft carriers. The plane not only had bombs, but also had a 75mm cannon and 2 forward-facing machine guns. The most notable use of the plane comes in 1942, when Lieutenant Colonel James Doolittle successfully commenced a bombing raid against the Japanese airfields in Tokyo. It was a resounding win for the Allies, of which the Japanese Air Force would never recover from. After this, the B-25 stopped production, and Boeing focused on the newer models. Eventually, the B-29 would drop the atomic bombs on Nagasaki and Hiroshima. After World War II, the Allies came to an agreement where they would split up Europe. France, the UK, and the US would get land west of the East German border. Russia would get the land east of the west border. What I mean is that Germany was split into two, east and west. After some sour relations, President Truman issued the Truman Doctrine, in which he essentially said, "The Soviet Union cannot be trusted, and we will do everything to stop the spread of communism." Tensions were extremely high due to both sides having both nuclear weapons and thermonuclear weapons. Proxy wars broke out and both sides funded different countries. And eventually, the US and Soviets finally formed a peace treaty and became allies. For a moment, let's forget all of this and focus on a large city in western Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh, known for their many factories, the most bridges in the world, and bloody, delicious ketchup. At around 2 p.m. on January 31st, 1956, Major William Dotson and his crew of 5 were flying over Pittsburgh on a routine training flight from Nellis Air Force Base in Nevada to pick up a cargo of airplane parts. During the flight, they had stopped to refuel at Tinker Air Force Base in Oklahoma, and again at Selfridge Air Force Base in Michigan. At around 4 p.m., the crew had reported a loss of fuel and wanted to land at the Greater Pittsburgh Airport. However, Dotson knew that they would not make it, so they decided to aim for the Allegheny County Airport. At around 4:11 p.m., all fuel was lost, with many engine malfunctions. Dotson had to act fast, so he went for a lauder landing. The plane had just narrowly avoided hitting the Homestead Grays Bridge. After floating for nearly 11 minutes on the clock, they had found themselves in 34-degree water. 2 of the 6 crew had drowned trying to swim to shore. Hours later, the Coast Guard rescued the remaining 4 and had snagged the wing of the plane with their anchor when, mysteriously, the line slipped. The search had continued for 14 days until it was finally called off. No one knows quite what had happened that evening. However, the mystery lies in the river and in the plane. How does a 15-foot tall plane go missing in a 20-foot deep river? Surely there must be some explanation. Well, there are theories for this. Theory number 1. The plane had been carrying dangerous weapons, and the military had secretly recovered the contents. The evidence that comes from this is the tensions between America and the Soviet Union. Only a year earlier had the Vietnam War began, and it looked like America would have to go to the nuclear route. Many believe that when the plane crashed, the military told the crew to keep quiet and not reveal the contents. They believe that the military had cleaned up the wreckage and retrieved the plane. Some say they were carrying a bomb or even a nuclear weapon. However, what is particularly damning to this theory is that the crew were flying on a training flight, meaning they wouldn't be carrying WMDs. Theory number 2. the water corroded the plane. This theory is correct in every way except the aftermath. The pH level of the Monongahela averages at around 7.5. If the river eroded the plane, the pH level would have to be at least 10. Not only that, but no matter which way the plane would fall, you would at least be able to see it 5 feet under the water. Even if the water had been a pH of 10, the search team would have found it within the 14-day search. Theory number 3. They were carrying UFOs or parts for the UFOs. The evidence from the UFO comes from the plane flying over Nevada, which, if you like this sort of mysterious videos such as these, involves Area 51, a military base set to house aliens. People also point the finger that the plane mysteriously ran out of fuel. I decided to do a little investigation and saw that the distance from Selfridge to Pittsburgh was only 203 miles. This plane was set to fly 1,350 miles on a full tank. How could they just lose all of that fuel? For a second, I thought it was just bad weather. But according to an almanac published then, there was only 0.01 inches of rain. To top it off, the wind speed was only 13 miles per hour, which is fast, but the plane would be able to handle it. It all seems a little inconspicuous to me. If they had been carrying aliens or UFOs, then maybe it would cause the plane to lose fuel and malfunction. When it crashed, either the military retrieved it or the aliens did. A recent search was conducted by the Heinz History Center using a search team and sonar scanners. Surprisingly, they came out with nothing. Whether they were carrying WMDs or UFOs, this mystery may forever be unsolved.